Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. The record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
The record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
Good morning. I'm Orit Connor, and welcome to For the Record. Whether you're here in the Cayman Islands or whether or not you're listening via the web overseas. We apologize for the late start this morning, and our loyal listeners are really on the ball because I got a call on my cell phone just now saying, what happened to the show? What happened to the show? I said, we're coming on now. We'll be on in a few minutes. So I want to thank our listeners for being, so loyal and anticipating that the show is going to be on and just waiting with that dial tuning on 89.9 to hear For the Record. Of course, For the Record is a show produced by Radio Cayman, its staff, and its management specifically for you, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. Like I said earlier, I'm your host, Orit Connor, and you can always join me on For the Record on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 7:30 a.m. until 9:30 a.m. Our phone lines are always open. There's always someone there waiting to take your call. Usually, you will encounter Ms. Susan Watson, and you can't miss that distinctive, beautiful voice. So you can call us on our toll-free number, which is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. And, of course, if you don't like to talk on the telephone, then you can email us at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record at candw.ky. And, of course, For the Record would not be possible without our loyal sponsors as well. And For the Record is brought to you by Seagrape Secretarial Services. Seagrape Secretarial Services is located at Unit Number 2, Grand Plaza, Howard Street, Georgetown. Seagrape Secretarial Services provide quality, professional, and affordable service, and that quality, professional, and affordable service is guaranteed. At Seagrape Secretarial Services, there is no job that is too small, for them. So you can contact Seagrape Secretarial Services at Unit Number 2, Grand Plaza, Howard Street in Georgetown. Just a quick look at the news this morning, and we see in the Caymanian compass, the headlines, fuel prices continue slow decline at the pump. I think the lowest price that I saw, and they have quoted here last week and the weekend as well, was $4.84 at some stations. So we've actually broken through the $5 mark. Hopefully we can break through to the $4 mark and get down to $3 and something. Whether or not that will happen, I'm not sure. We see some comments in here from the Petroleum Inspectorate as well, and they will be visiting service stations during the course of the next few weeks again to see what's happening there, and they have given a commitment that they will report back to the public on what's happening as well. Unfortunately, for the beginning of the year, we have already seen 3 fatalities in the Cayman Islands. One, an automobile accident in the BRAC. We saw a shooting in West Bay, and then the unfortunate drowning of a Cuban refugee off South Sound as well. So the new year has not started off that great in that regard as well. And our condolences go out to the families, of those victims and of the accidents as well as the shooting also. You heard me go over my spleage in relation to the Caymanian compass, and I just want to read an email that we received from one of our listeners. And it says, Dear Orit, having read today's Compass editorial and heard your very pertinent inquiry regarding who actually owns the newspaper, his wife and himself feel compelled to forward his most recent letter to Patrick Brendel for your information. We are also puzzled as to who exactly this newspaper is claimed to represent. Their decidedly odd use of American English while claiming to be the heartbeat of the Cayman Islands and its official use of British English aside, they appear to be advocating views which clearly are not those held by a majority of the Caymanian people. The landfill and immigration are two glaring examples of the gulf that exists between what the Cayman Compass advocates and the wishes of the Caymanian people. As such, they are really being, at best, very arrogant, and when all is said and done, quite subversive. And in quotation, it says, see the outrageous and defamatory claim regarding customs officers in the editorial of the 12th of August, for example. Presumably, the same would apply to immigration officers. Best wishes. And I'm going to take the time and read what they wrote to the Compass as well. Dear Patrick, still awaiting any justification for the editorial assertion of the 12th of August 2014 that were a Cayman Islands customs officer to require lawful duty to be paid by the premier, he or she would be fired. Perhaps there is none, hence the absence of your reply. On another note, regarding the editorial of Friday the 20th of December 2014, there seems to have been a major error committed in reference to what the Constitution says about the power of the governor, and in addition, an absence of understanding about the definition of the term professional colleague. Patrick, we all make mistakes, but there appears to be a certain lack of care on the part of the impressively titled Compass editorial board as regards the need for accuracy, as well as rather peculiar assertions for sure, such as our customs officers being fired for fulfilling their lawful duties, and the Georgetown MLAs being viewed with the Bordentown MLAs for being the cause of the dump still being in their district. Both the results of comically overactive imagination rather than serious thinking, surely. When serious publications who value being trusted for their accuracy do make the inevitable mistake, it is customary to publish a following correction. And I know you and your professional colleagues pride yourselves in accurate reporting because you have clearly stated the means by which you strive to achieve it in great detail, as I recall. Might I suggest that the Compass publishes such a correction in regards to the inaccurate contents of the front page, oddly, editorial baying for Ozzy's dismissal. To make a mistake and acknowledge it is one thing. To make a mistake and refuse to acknowledge it is something else. To err is human. My point is, if you wish for your readership to continue to have faith in the accuracy of what it is you are telling them, you must admit your errors and strive to minimize future ones. That's just life. Incidentally, congratulations on your editorial on the 10th of December 2014. Quote, Mother England, a 100% accurate take on the woes the UK has inflicted upon itself as regards the mishandling of the immigration. A total bullseye description of the terrible consequences of being paranoid about being labeled a racist. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. So, there are others who are taking on the Caymanian compass as well, and there's a silent majority out there also who do not necessarily agree with most that is printed in the editorials of the Caymanian compass as well. And for the record, we'll continue to hold them to the standards that they claim to represent, and we will continue to challenge them when we see errors being made in their editorials and in their reporting in general. Folks, that is my speech for the day. I know you're sitting there wondering who will be our guest in the studio this morning. And this morning, on the 5th of January 2015, we have none other, and it is quite fitting that at the beginning of the year, it is quite fitting to have none other than the Honorable Premier Alden McLaughlin. Premier, good morning and welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC. Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to all the listening public. It's good to be here this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I didn't know that you gave such long speeches before you started, but...
Well, I got practice with this, because when the show first started, there were mornings when I didn't have any guests at all, and I had to sit up all night, doing research and making preparations. So that has prepared me for this. But yes, I'm starting to develop a higher confidence level on this show, and that bodes well for my listening audience because I'm much more able to deliver to them, and that is really what, based on what I'm hearing from people directly, that is really what they want to hear. So, Premier, with the beginning of the new year,
you become really brave because you dare challenge the gospel of the compass.
I know, and they haven't named me yet. They just talk about talk shows, but they haven't named me personally yet. But whenever they do, I'll be able to deal with that as well. But there is a high level of anticipation, Premier, out there in the public in relation to 2015. There are those who are looking to see even more improvements in the economy, in their own personal situations as well. We know, for instance, 1st of January is when the reduction on the duty
import duty on diesel for CUC.
And then, of course, whether or not we will see that
from 75 cents to 50 cents a gallon. Yeah,
and whether or not we will see that in our January bills that we will receive in January, which will be December's bill, or whether or not we won't see it until February. That will
no, it doesn't take effect until the 1st of January. So the impact of it will be on the bill that is rendered for January, whenever that is, whether that's at the end of January or early February.
Right. Yeah. Susan, we continue talking as well? Okay. So, Premier, first of all, I'll hand over to you for you to do your introduction.
And let me say before we no, that's fine. We can forego the formal introduction. But we're talking about a subject that is near and dear to the hearts and pockets of just about everyone. So, I mean, coupled with that, there is a downward trend, global trend in fuel prices.
Right.
So I think that bodes well. We should see, actually, by the end of January, significant reduction in electricity bills right across the board. So I'm hoping that is, a belated Christmas gift that we all get and can take the benefit of. And obviously that will impact operational costs of businesses, which hopefully they'll be able to pass on some of those savings to consumers as well. So the knock-on effect can be significant, and we hope that it carries all the way through.
Excellent, excellent. Let's look at some of the areas, the Cayman Islands economy, imports. We have seen, I believe, an increase in in the number of imports as well.
Yeah, let me say overall that the economy is performing much better now than it was this time a year ago. I think the prospects for Cayman are really, really good. All of the key indicators that government has are showing an upward movement in terms of the economy's performance. And at the same time, government has been able, because of careful management and stewardship, to contain its operational costs. We've been able to, as a result, we've been able to get government finances back on track and get to a position where we've been able to reduce a significant number of fees which are generally charged to the public. You mentioned one just now with respect to CUC and the reduction in diesel that is imported for the purpose of generating electricity. But we've also been able to reduce trade and business licenses fees. We've been able to reduce import duties as far as traders are concerned on the full range of imports that come in to Cayman from 22% down to 20%. We are looking with respect to the next budget to see if there are other reductions that we can make, but at the same time bearing in mind this careful balance that we have to strike to ensure that government's revenue continue to be strong, and that we don't wind up in a situation where the previous administration did, where they make they make changes, like they reduce civil servant salaries and then decide to increase it and then have to cut it back again. And so we don't want to get into that state of uncertainty. All of the trends are positive. The GDP performance for the 12-13 fiscal year was 1.3%. The unaudited for 13-14 year is 1.6. The one that we've projected for this year, the 14-15 year, is 2.1. Next year, 2.3, 2.6. So all of the indicators that we have, all the economic indicators, point to an economy that is growing, that is going to continue to improve well. Air arrivals, from the tourism standpoint, air arrivals are up significantly. At the end of October, which is the last numbers we have, 312,542, which is like 35,000 more than the previous year. We're looking for record numbers this year. When we get the numbers for November and December, we're expecting somewhere close to 400,000 air arrivals, which would be a record number. Cruise arrivals are at end of October were 1.3 million, compared to just over 1 million the previous year, an increase of somewhere around 220,000. So all around there's very, very good growth, and all of the indicators are that this is going to continue and continue to improve. So the signs for the economy, I think, are very, very good. You were speaking just now about the total value of imports, which again is an indication of how well the economy is doing, because people are importing and consuming goods. The value of imports increased by almost 5% over last year. So that was at September. We were at 560.1 million in 2013 and up to 587.3 million last year. So as I said, all of the indicators are that the economy is starting to perform. When we come back, I think you're looking to go to a break. Right.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
When you come back, we can talk about the lag between the way the economy is starting to perform and employment, which is a critical factor and one that concerns everyone. But we can talk about that when you come back.
Certainly, folks. I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Art Connor, and I have in the studio with me this morning the Honorable Premier, Honorable Alden McLaughlin, who's here talking about the Cayman Islands, talking about the economy, looking forward to 2015 and what will the expectations are for 2015. Please stay tuned. We'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Art Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning, I have the Honorable Alden McLaughlin, Premier of the Cayman Islands, and we're talking about 2015 aspirations and expectations. Sorry. Mr. Premier, the micro economics and in terms of GDP and the performance of the government and the audited accounts are all fine. But when we talk to the man on the street, and depending on who you talk to, some will say, those that are in business will say things are improving. Right. I know I spoke to someone quite recently who works in the planning department, and they were amazed by the number of planning applications that are coming in and the value of the properties and premises that are being approved. So, things are looking fine on that end. And for the record, on Friday, I identified as the most those persons that we really, really need to concentrate on being the elderly and the young children as well in terms of our economy and how we look out for them. We recognize that, yes, the FFR is still in place and there are restrictions and limitations on that. But there are still people who are saying if the government is seeing such a rosy picture as far as the finances are concerned, what can the government do to assist those elderly persons who are still struggling, those families that are still have their electricity cut off? What can be done for them, in the meantime? Because those are the ones who have to wait for the trickle-down effect to take place, and whether they can survive until that trickle-down effect takes place is another question.
Yeah, well, let me deal with that point first. I mean, this government has taken a very compassionate approach to these issues, and we actually have a national, assessment unit that actually assesses the needs of people in the community who are struggling just to survive. And despite all of the various cuts, government is continuing to assist people where that need is demonstrated. I was until the 31st of December the minister responsible for community affairs, so I've become quite intimate with how all of those things work. But as far as government's overall financial position is concerned, and the surplus, the healthy surplus that we have achieved in the previous 2 years and that we're projecting over the course of the next few years, it is important that people understand that that surplus isn't just available for us to use as and how we wish. Not only are there the various ratios that we have to comply with to make sure that we meet the requirements of the Public Management and Finance Law, which now incorporates the FFR, but we also need to continue to use that money for a whole range of things, including paying down government debt and a whole range of things. So it's not as though we have $100 million available that we can just distribute as and how we wish. But coming back to the unemployment issue very swiftly, unemployment is trending downward. 12-13, 6.3%, 13-14, 6.2. This year projected 5.9, next year 5.7, the following year 5.3. But those numbers are still high in a country which over the course of the last 20 years, well, minus the last 4 or 5, but in the 20 years preceding that, was operating at full employment or overemployment. So we can't ignore the significance of that. But aside from that, what we find, which is not unusual, is you had the same thing in the U.S., is this phenomenon of what's called jobless growth. Because when an economy has been in recession for a significant amount of time and businesses have struggled to keep their doors open, they are understandably much more reluctant to just go out on a hiring spree. And so they keep saying, well, let me see how long I can hang on with the current staff that I have. Am I sure enough of the future and in terms of growth and revenue that I can go out on a limb and hire another employee? And so we've been going through that period, but I think things are changing. Certainly, as you indicated, from the business people's standpoint, and I've talked to many, particularly over the Christmas. It's been a good Christmas. Businesses are definitely far more optimistic about things now. Getting that to translate into more job opportunities, specifically for Caymanians, is the great challenge that this government faces. I mean, we still got 22,000 people on work permit. So it's not a question of there being a lack of jobs in the economy. It's just a lack of jobs available to certain Caymanians or a certain sector of Caymanians who are unemployed.
Okay. Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Dorrit Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning, we have the Honorable Alden McLaughlin, Premier of the Cayman Islands. When we come back, we're going to be talking not only about unemployment, but we're going to be talking about infrastructural issues. We're going to talk about money, banking, and financial services, construction projects, the fiscal strategy that the Cayman Islands is undertaken as well, private sector growth, the development infrastructure, public liabilities management, all sorts of things we're going to be talking about. And our phone lines will be open also so that you can call in. And when we return after our news break, we will give you those phone numbers that you can call into For the Record. Please stay tuned. We'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. Hope you enjoyed the news from Radio Cayman. Quality news. You may have heard me on Friday sort of like criticize Radio Cayman a little bit in relation to the news during the holiday period where we may have been bombarded with the same news all of the time. But we also have to recognize that there might have been staffing constraints during that period of time. But even with that, you still get current news from Radio Cayman, and you're not hearing history, because after one day, as a matter of fact, during the course of a day, the news can become history because it can be overtaken by something else quite easily as well. Mr. Premier, before we go on to some of the topics that I promised the audience that we would be discussing, recognizing that the Department of Children and Family Services no longer falls under your remit. I got a message from one of our listening audience, and they talked about that they would like to know if someone will be looking into social services and Seamen's benefits. They pointed out that there are people receiving assistance who receive a salary of over $5,000 per month, plus assistance from the father of the child. They get plus they have monthly income from rental units as well. Says this is the reason real seamen can't receive their allowances, and it is very sad. I hope something will be done in the near future to address this problem. So they're talking about the vetting procedures at Children and Family Services.
That's not a function of Children and Family Services, but it's a function of the ministry for which I had responsibility, which is Community Affairs.
Okay.
And the concern is legitimate. It is something that we have been examining for quite some time now. The reality is that we have a limited budget with respect to everything, but particularly with respect to how much is paid in terms of the seamen ex gratia payments. And that is a fixed budget. And so the demand for it, for the grant, the numbers exceed the budget by a significant number.
But what about the ability to weed out the cheats?
Right. So the problem has been that there was, although criteria was developed over time as to who should be allowed to be in receipt of seaman grants. There's a whole range of criteria that the seaman has to be resident here. He had to be a Caymanian at the time.
But more so, I think their concern was children receiving benefits, from Children and Family Services. Let's say, for instance, benefits for family assistance for, if the person is deemed to not have sufficient income, or they have a child who's in need of assistance.
That's quite distinct from the seaman.
Yeah, what they're saying is that if the cheats were weeded out in social services, children and family services, then the government would have more, or should have more, available to give seamen, or even to give families who are in more in need of it, because we hear stories of people driving up to the Office of Children and Family Services in Mercedes-Benz and BMWs and stuff like that.
I've heard all of those things too, but quite frankly, I don't believe those stories. What's now in place is a national assessment unit, which is, I have to concede, understaffed. We simply don't have the number of staff we need to carry out the assessments as swiftly as we do. But any person who is in receipt of a government check with respect to financial assistance now has to be assessed first. And that is not to say that people still can't jinnle the system. I'm not suggesting that that's the case and that the system is perfect. But what I'm saying is that anyone who is in receipt of these things have to be assessed. If people have evidence, or if they can help us by pointing out who the cheats are and they have evidence of it, please let us know. Send us an email, send word, send me a text, send somebody a call. We actually don't necessarily need all the evidence. We just need to know that there are grounds for suspicion, and a proper investigation will be carried out. Will be carried out. But the system is improving. But as I said, we really do need the National Assessment Unit. Is something that was established since I took office, under the recommendation of the ministry, and I thought it was an excellent idea, because they are, as you pointed out at the start of our discussion this morning, there are still significant number of people who are in real need, and we need to have the ability to move fairly quickly to assess whether or not that is the case. And many people say, "Oh, worry about the assessment." You can see that man is in need, but it is to try to avoid the kinds of situations which the message that you just read speaks about, where some people will just abuse the system.
Mm-hmm. And then there are those who have family members who could assist them as well. Of course, the Cayman Islands has moved away from the whole concept, the families helping, other family members and stuff like that. We're not doing as much of that as we should be doing, which is unfortunate as well. We have one caller online, so let's take that caller now. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record, and a Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. O'Connor. Good morning, our Honorable Premier. And Happy New Year to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Amjad, and Happy New Year to you too.
How are you doing, our Honorable Premier?
I'm doing all right, all things considered. Got health and strength.
See, you stop ask about me, it seems, because I am criticizing your government.
But Amjad, no one should be surprised that you've done that when we were in government and when we are not. So the day you're not criticizing us, I really worry. I know where your political loyalties lie, and I respect that.
First, I have a great respect to you personally. You know that. I always show my respect to you, and I always will. First, you, our elected premier, democratically elected, and I respect the fact that we have a democratic elected government. That's something, is a great thing. If we don't have this democracy, I will not be long time. I will be in jail, for criticizing your government. So we thank God for the democracy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I agree with you.
But I would like really, thank the Premier. Maybe will surprise a lot of people for the hard work he done previously in the 2 years gone. And I know everyone of the government trying to do something. I know the attention is the love of this country, no doubt of that. Maybe we disagree about the way how things done, but I think in the end, you make your effort to try to do something. But what I want to really, I have a wish. The Honorable Premier needs to look at the issue of prices of gas. Because the prices of gas, if it's $1.78 in the United States, if we put a transportation $0.50, that's $2 something. And let us say $1 more to make those who own those two companies in Cayman benefit and make money is a simple logic thing. That will make it $3 something. But it seems $5 gas is a very high price, and they're making a lot of money. They're robbing the people of this country. That's the first issue. The second issue is the prices of electricity is gone mad, and people, 600 Caymanians out of light and water. I know this is not going to be good, for your government. You will not accept that one single Caymanian don't have a light and water. And it's very sad when we see poorness and those people roaming in the streets because they don't have a place to live. It is very sad. I see the government have 100 and something million surplus. As I think I agree with Mr. Bush, the government needs to use some of this money to make the life of the people easier. It is not about every government want to make surplus. It is all about the government making the life of the people of this country better off. The people who is hungry. I know you drive your van and you see how hard life people all over the island.
Okay, caller, if you can give the Premier now an opportunity to respond to you, that would be great. Premier?
Yes, my friend Amjad raised a number of issues. As far as the cost of fuel is concerned, that is something that has exercised the minds and been a concern to, I think, every government that's been around. We took some steps when we were in government the last time around to force the publication of the prices by the fuel stations, and that has gone some ways. But that is nowhere near enough. And we have been talking and considering what to do. Now, my own view is that only competition, short of nationalization of the fuel companies in Cayman, which is what they've done in places like Barbados, short of that, the only thing that is actually going to get prices in line and at a fair level is more competition. And that is an avenue that we are actively exploring. Because other than that, we're going to have to either nationalize them or move to some form of price control, none of which I am in favor of. But we can't have what I believe is extortionate profit making at the cost of the average person, which is what is going on now and has been going on for a long time.
And if you speak to the retailers, like gas station owners, and there's one that we talk to quite frequently on a Sunday morning when we're riding, and they will tell you that they make literally cents on a gallon of gas. Yeah. They don't make a whole lot of money. It's not the service stations that are making the money.
Right. Now, so I agree with the concerns expressed there. As I say, we should be getting some significant relief. I think we're getting some at the pumps now. The question is, or the concern is that we're not getting enough given how far prices have fallen. But we should get some significant relief over what has been the case for the past few years, given the global downward trend in fuel prices. And as I said, plus the relief that we have granted with the reduction of import duties on diesel for the purposes of electricity generation. And I don't know where Mr. Amjad gets this number of $600 families without electricity.
I actually heard 700 on the weekend.
Well, you hear these.
Not as someone repeating what they've heard.
Right, you hear these numbers, but I say I just don't know how they are, how those numbers are come by. So I don't give them a great deal of credence. But what I will say to him is, he said he agreed with Mr. Bush. The government should be taking some of its surplus to deal with these. Well, we have. What Mr. Amjad needs to remember is that Mr. Bush administration added a full 50 cents to the cost of the import duty for diesel for the purposes of generation of electricity, significantly driving up electricity costs. This government is taking the approach of taking that off, but we are doing it in stages because the impact of that 25 cents on current government revenue is estimated to be about $4 million loss in revenue. So we'll see where we get to, and maybe by the next budget we can look again at reducing the import duty further. Those are significant steps, and there are actually stuff. It's actually the kind of stuff step that actually impacts the consumer directly, because it is a flow through. The fuel costs are a flow through on your bill. No aspect of that, goes to CUC's profit line.
Yeah. So if I can interrupt you, Premier. So if come February and we see our bill, electricity bill, and if we have basically the same amount of usage, and we haven't really seen a significant reduction in our electricity bills, will government look at it before the next budget cycle? Because you say that you've given up about $4 million in revenue, but when you look at the surplus that the government is likely to achieve, it's going to be more than $4 million easily. Could you have possibly do the 50 cents reduction as opposed to the 25 cents reduction this time around? And would it be still considered if come February we don't really see that much of a reduction in our?
I think we need to. I think we need to leave it a little longer than a month to see how much impact it has. Yeah, right.
Fair enough.
But the next budget won't start until the 1st of July. So we'll have that period in there to make the assessment, both with respect to the impact that this has on the average household electricity bill costs, and the impact that it is likely to have on government revenue going forward, to see whether we can knock off perhaps another 25 cents or so. And so, because the current import duty, or up until the first, the import duty was 75 cents per gallon. So it's now at 50. So we'll see where we get to with that. So the point I'm making, for the benefit of my friend Amjad and the broader public, is that this government has actually taken tangible steps to help reduce the overall cost of electricity consumption. I think those were the 2 points that
he made. Yes. Thank you very much for that, Premier. Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Art Connor, and my guest in the studio with me this morning is the Honorable Alden McLaughlin, Premier of the Cayman Islands, and we're discussing Cayman Islands 2015, what the expectations are, what you should look forward to. Feel free to call us, and we will give you those numbers again once we come back on the air. We're going to go to a commercial break at this point in time, so please stay tuned. We'll be back shortly. Good morning. Welcome back. I'm Art Connor, host of For the Record, and in the studio with me this morning we have the Honorable Alden McLaughlin, Premier of the Cayman Islands. I want to remind you that our phone lines are open. Our toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. The latter two numbers are not toll-free numbers. And of course, if you don't like to talk on the telephone, you can email me, like a couple of our listeners have done, at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record, at candw.ky. I'm told that we have one caller online, so let's take that caller now. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record, and a Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, too. Good morning, gentlemen. Mr. Premier, Mr. Connor.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, Mr. Michel. How are you?
Yes, sir. God bless. I'm very encouraged this morning by what I'm hearing. I know that this is a new year and we want to move forward. I'm encouraged because there are a lot of people who are in need. But also what I have found is those many that are in need, sometimes they get on top on their feet and then they still continue to try and get, some help. And this is where I would like to see some kind of regulations into that. Is that's fair enough? You need help, but when you can help yourself, you should be able to do so. On the topic of gasoline, well, as you all know, it controls everything. It controls our utility bill, which is one of our biggest and foremost concern to all of us, to where it's very difficult. And it'll do the same for all the food that is brought in and all that. And if we can put some sort of control on that, a lot of people say that we're expensive, but when I was in Canada, I have to say that fuel there was as expensive as it was in Cayman. And you think that Alberta, with all the fuel that they have over there, Canada would be less. But somebody's making the money. And I, too, know that the gas stations make their money by selling other items than gas. They make pennies. They make 10 cents a gallon, like it used to be in the old days. It's good, but that's why they have convenience stores and food and all that to make up the difference as convenience. But I'm very pleased to see, Mr. Premier, that you're taking the bull by the horn, and I pray that we're going to continue. We really need to bring back a positive image of the Cayman Islands as well, that by each and every one of us do our part in being positive and not always complain, but just do our part like we did many, many decades ago, how we built Cayman.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And it's refreshing this morning to hear my premier, to hear you, Mr. Connor, discussing things that affect our everyday lives. And Mr. Alden, I'm quite proud of you.
Thank you,
And
sir.
I hope that you keep up the good work.
We go back a long ways.
We go back a long ways, and I know your heart. And we can all disagree, but it's more important to agree to disagree than to go by the name calling that I've seen through the Christmas holidays. And every time I try to put a positive message, it worries me that there's many people on this island that think the way they do, but yet it's always anonymously. To me, anonymous comment, even I don't understand when someone says, "Oh, condolences to my friend and their families for the passing of your loved one," and you sign anonymous. Well, where does this come from? If you notice, those of us who write comments, old expatriate characters, as we like to call ourselves, that mingled with the people and learned the Caymanian culture before imposing ours. We sign our name. We're not afraid. Why should we? You give a compliment to someone, why should be hiding under the anonymous team? That bothers me a lot. And, you hear this one and that one and that one, but to think that there's so many, there's been some extremely, and I'm not defending anyone, please don't, I don't want anybody to jump the gun, but nobody's perfect. You show me one that's perfect, well, I think it was Jesus Christ, and they crucified him. That's how I look at it. Okay, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody's entitled to forgiveness. Now for the new year, I intend to make a difference by taking a positive outlook and not a negative one, wherever I can help. And that is my message this morning, is I want to wish everybody in the Cayman Islands, I got to tell people that, be called a driftwood these days is nothing compared to 20, 30 years ago. Okay? So we have to get used to, we will be, doesn't matter, but those that take advantage of trying to devise our beautiful country, I find it very, very wrong. And I plead with the people to use common sense, and let's find common ground into forgiving each other, because no one is perfect. No one. As Jesus said, show me the one who has never lost his temper, and may he cast the first stone. So that's my 2 cents for this morning.
Thank you very much, caller. We want to thank you for such a positive attitude, and we hope that many others will emulate you, with that. Thank you very much.
I couldn't agree more, and thank you very much, my friend Michelle. I wish most people would, but more people would follow your lead, and with respect to that, and understand and appreciate what a wonderful place we have here called the Cayman Islands. Imperfect though it is, and imperfect though those of us who inhabit it are, there are few places in the world, and I've been to many, that even begin to compare with what we have here in terms of everything, including diversity and tolerance and all of those other things which are notably missing in so many other places. And in my address, my New Year's address, I pleaded with certain of the media houses who seem intent on demonizing Cayman and Caymanians to this year do some introspective thinking and consider whether they really want to make Cayman out to be the hell they claim it is. And if it is such a horrible place, inhabited by such horrible people, is this really a place that they want to continue to live? The reality is they know it is not a hell, that it is one of the best places in the world in which to live, work, invest, play, have fun, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, they have it so good they don't want to share it with anybody else, so that's why they tell the people that it's not that good.
And rather than hunting out every negative story that there possibly is and campaigning on it for a month, now and again, publish one of the many positive stories that there are about Cayman. These things are read all over the world. It's a question not of seeking to hide the things that we get wrong, but it's a question of where you place the emphasis. Is it on the negative things, of which there will always be some, or the positive things, of which there are always many in the Cayman context? And that's what I'd like us to start to value, all of us who live here. Whether we're Caymanian born or new Caymanians or residents or visitors, value and be proud of and promote the wonderful place in which you live.
I agree. I think we have one caller online. Let's take that caller now. Caller, good morning and welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC, and good morning, Mr. Premier McLaughlin.
Good morning, my co-host. How art thou?
I'm good. I'm fine.
Morning, Mr. Steve. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. I am sorry that I didn't get to see you before Christmas and the New Year. To wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Well, thank you very much, but it had me on a little bit of pressure.
Yes. First of all, I'd like to send to you and your family my condolence to the loss of your uncle, that icon, Caymanian icon that was cut down by death shortly, not long ago.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a rough year. We lost 3 of them. They all hung on for a long time, all into their 90s. But when they decided to pack up and go, 3 of them went 1 year. So it's been a tough year.
Yeah, I think that the Saturday that he passed on, a group of us was meeting, and we were saying that we were going to see certain people, and he was one of them that I was supposed to go to see and to tape him. Especially getting some more in-depth information about the forgotten men of the Navy. That he edited, and to get some more information about his stellar career in that theater, and his tenure as commander in the Jamaican forces. Yeah. He lost to you and also lost to me because I didn't get to do that job. And when people like that go, I feel sad.
Yeah.
That sometimes you procrastinate too long and wait too long, and then you lose the whole narrative.
Yeah. For those who would wonder who Mr. McVeigh is speaking about is my late uncle, my father's eldest brother, Captain Norman Rudolph McLaughlin. But Steve, he actually started an autobiography, but just before he came back home 3 years ago. But he told me after he got it, he says, "Al, I know I'm not going to be able to finish it because I'm just fading too fast." Yeah. But I think the work he did, the Forgotten Men of the Navy, I went through it again in preparation for his funeral and writing his obituary and stuff, and it's a personal recount of the experience of his experience in the Trinidad Navy, and subsequently during World War II. But and it is personal in that respect. But there are a whole lot of historical details there that, as a Caymanian, just make my heart, beat proud. When you think that a population of less than 5,000, we sent 201 men down there. And someone like my dear uncle who to rise to the rank that he did, fighting colonial prejudice and a whole range of other things, is just an amazing testament to the character and will of those iron men of that time. And it really, even if he were not my uncle, I would still be immensely proud. I am immensely proud of all of them, and their contribution to the war effort and to world peace. And he bemoaned, as many of them did, the fact that their efforts really were not properly recognized, and perhaps still haven't been properly recognized. And that's what motivated him to write that book and to give it that title, The Forgotten Men of the Navy. So, yeah.
Well, I wanted to say that, and I also want to agree with you about the media and the powerful people in our country who seems to be directing our country. And watching the Cayman Islands evolve and change is like watching a hurricane pass over, fearing and wondering when the hurricane winds will finish blowing. OC and Premier, it seems that we have discarded conventional wisdom of the long-term effects of exploitation of the poor and the less prosperous for a short-term gains of riches and power that is ultimately causing violent reactions from among our people. What reminds me of the dilemma that the Negroes, as they were called in the 1950s and 60s in America, when they were sort of trapped in a war of racism and colonialism and poverty, they started to turn on themselves, cutting up themselves and with razors and shooting themselves and stuff and things like that. And that is very unfortunate, because I believe that we have discarded generations of inclusiveness and of our local culture for entrepreneurial corporate greed. And that seems to be destroying our people and endangering our environment and exhausting our resources. And when as the gentleman said before, the gentleman who called before I did, as he said, we have become now an anonymous society. We can't even sign our name to send greetings, to condolences to someone. That in itself tells me that something is wrong. Perhaps, Mr. Premier, you might consider some of the things that Mr. Jim did when he was in power between 1976 and 1984. He started a foundation called the Help Foundation, and it was not only to help people to get on their feet and to help them with the way forward, but he also brought in people undercover here that could give him and his and his executive council the information that they needed, because the police as was not proactive, and they only reacted to everything that happened. Perhaps you might consider doing some of that so that you can be abreast and appraised of things before they happen and be able to prevent some of them.
Okay. Caller, I'm going to ask you if you could leave us there. We have a
Yeah.
few more callers queued up, so we want to take those before the 9 o'clock break. But certainly, we'll still have another half an hour, so please feel free to call back so that we can continue this conversation. Thank you very much, Mr. Macfield.
Thank you.
Susan, you want to shoot the next caller? Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record, and a Happy New Year to you.
Good morning, Mr. O.C.
Good morning. How are you doing, Jan?
Fine. Happy New Year and Happy New Year to the Premier.
Thank you.
Good morning, ma'am. I haven't seen you in a long time. How are you?
I'm fine. And y'all don't cut me off with no news, okay? Can let me speak my mind this morning.
You got to speak it fast.
I'm not in charge of that. That's OC, so don't blame me, okay?
Oh, my goodness. Good morning, good morning. Talking about a beautiful island. The Cayman Island is beautiful. And when you go to another country, it makes you appreciate your own country even more.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say to the Premier, and if you could just pass this on to Mr. Moses Cocorno. We had cruise ships came in on Christmas Day, which we haven't had in a few years. Well, it was nice to know they were coming, but knowing there was so many stores closed, the turtle farm was closed. And I did 2 tours in the West Bay District. And Mr. Premier, I was so disappointed of the garbage heaped up in various locations, plus regular garbage to be picked up. I don't know what happened. You can explain later when I hang up, but don't take my time, please.
I don't know. I had the same experience, my dear. I actually had to load my own garbage on the back of my truck and take it away.
Okay. I understand that. But even on Cardinal Avenue, downtown Georgetown, after Christmas Eve, it was a bit filthy. And I'm accustomed to my tourists telling me how clean the Cayman Islands is. And not hearing that Christmas Day with 2 tours, it was heartbreaking to me. I felt like I did not complete my tour properly. I was so disappointed. My heart was filled after my people left my car. But I'll stick a pin there and just hope that if they do bring ships in here again on a Christmas Day, that they'll make sure that the island is clean, especially with garbage. And what I have to say about the residents, I know there's a truck on Era Avenue. They could have got together and carry the garbage for the holidays. They didn't have to wait for government truck to come pick up. But the stuff they had heaped up for the cleanup for the Christmas, I don't know what happened there, but it was a disgrace. A tourist asked me when I got to the West Bay Police Station if that was one of our garbage dumps right there. Before I could even say to her what was going on, she said it to me, and I said, no, we was doing a Christmas cleanup. And I'm not fully sure what took place, that we did not get it completely clean for the Christmas holidays. I was very hurt and disappointed. But anyhow, a tourist told me that on the cruise ship, they were told that the turtle farm was closed and they were not selling tickets for tours for the local tours on the island because the turtle farm was closed. And when they come aboard the island, they must go and take the Jolly Roger for $25 and tour downtown Georgetown. Now, Mr. Premier, I want you to know that those cruise ships are giving a lot of bad information in regards to the taxi drivers on this island, and a lot of bad information on this island. If they don't go in the Jolly Roger or any pre-book that they have on those boats, they tell them to go and take the city bus for $2.50 to get to the 7 Mile Beach or to the grocery stores or wherever they want to go. So they're not promoting the taxis on the cruise ship, which I think is very rude. You all need to go in there and find out exactly how they are selling the Cayman Islands to these tourists. And some of the tourists say that they are so happy that they come aboard and get information for themselves. They do not believe everything the cruise ship tells them because they have been to other islands, and it's a bunch of report because they say other people have to live too on the island, not just the pre-booked people. Anyhow, I leave you to look into that for me. Another thing.
No, caller, we're going to have to cut you there for now.
No, one more minute.
Quickly, very quickly, please.
Okay. I was in a state just recently, and when something happened in the state there, they call all the phones and let you know there's a robbery that's went on, whatever. They're whatever clothes they have on, they're on feet and their arm. I think our police department need to do something in that regard to make us know what's happening in the country. Don't let us wait for news. Call our phones and tell us so we can look out for these individuals on the road too.
Point well taken, caller. Thank you very much for that information, and we will have the Premier respond after we still have two callers, and we're going to try to see if we can take both of them before 9 o'clock.
Okay,
Almost an impossible task, but we'll try. Next caller, good morning, and welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. O.C.
Morning, Miss Georgette. How are you?
Good morning to the Honorable Premier, Mr. Alden McLaughlin.
Thank you very much, Miss Georgette, and Happy New Year to you.
And I hope that both of you had a wonderful, peaceful, happy Christmas with your families. And I wish both of you and every member in each of your families God's richest blessings be on each one of you and your families for 2015.
Thank you very much, Miss Georgia.
And, you know, Mr. Alden, I've known you from time you were a little boy, and I know all your family, and I respect them. I've been good friends with your Aunt Treva from, since we were young, and I do offer my sincere sympathy for the loss of your uncles and pass that on to your father.
Thank you very much, and I'll do that.
And I just would like to say, at church yesterday morning, when we had sharing time, I said it, and I quite often say it over the air and to my family members and friends. Words are so very, very powerful. They can build you up and they can tear you down.
Mm-hmm.
They can wound your heart and they can cheer up your heart too. So I said at church, I am going to be extra careful about the words I say to my family and friends and even to strangers. And I hope that all of us will remember, no matter how many times we say, oh, forgive me, I'm sorry I said, or such and such, words to you, it still is painful. And let's all try to watch the words that come out of our mouth. And one thing I would like to see come back in Cayman, that's when people meet you up, that they say good morning or hello or good evening, not look you in the eye, Mr. O.C. and Premier, and they all Cayman saying, and they don't even grunt. And that's not the Cayman way. God bless all the people on the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, Miss Georgette, before you go, on I think it was on Friday's show, when we talked about the you called in with the question about the hospital and the pacemakers and about being able to monitor, to check the charging on them. I checked into that, and that is something I'm told that is done by the doctor. Were you able to get any additional information, or was there anything else that you could share with us that would shed light on it?
For doing that, Mr. O.C. I got some further information. Not all pacemakers are the same. And each different type of pacemaker needs a different machine, I guess you call it, to test it. But thank you for remembering.
Thank you very much, Mr. Georgette. Thank you very much. We're going to ask the other caller to hold on, or are we going to go to that caller? We have one caller online, so we're going to ask that caller to please hold on. We're going to the headline news, which won't take that long. So please stay tuned. We'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We have one caller online, and we want to thank that caller for being so patient. So let's take that caller now. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC, and this call is for the Premier.
Good morning, ma'am, and Happy New Year.
Morning.
Happy New Year, too. And I am not in any way upset at the Premier. I'm just directing it to him because I would like him to do something about it.
That's okay, my dear. I'm used to it. So you just tell me whatever it is you have.
Very upset moment. And this is my first time calling a talk show. I never ever thought that I would, but I think it's a cause to, because I'm very upset. This morning, 6:40, we got up to do our dogs, my children and I. This car is parked in my yard, blocking my son's car. We've never seen that car before. So I called the police station. I said, I don't know if this is a 911 call or if I should speak to you. The lady told me to go ahead. She didn't say whether I should call 911 or what when I called. This was 6:39, 6:40 that I called. I told them the car was there. We didn't see anyone. It was blocking our car. It was parked in the yard like it occupied the house in the yard. Waiting on her, the lady said to me, okay, she'll have an officer come cross. Up until now, an officer hasn't come cross. An hour later, a woman came running and told me that was her car, and she's sorry that won't happen again because she was hiding from her boyfriend. Now that endangered me and my kids. What if when my son went out there this morning, he's the only male in this house, what if her boyfriend was waiting him to kill him, thinking he was her man or something?
Mm-hmm.
What if it was somebody mistaking my place, waiting us to hurt any one of us? And a police is going to call 2 hours later to ask if the car has gone. My daughter asked if they're just going to call, if nobody's going to come out. But he said that they were, in other words, short of staff or some crap, because I think it's a pile of crap. What kind of police force do we have?
Very interesting point, caller, and something, of course, the Premier is only responsible for the budget of the police, but...
No, well, that may be what the Constitution says, but I know that people in the country hold me responsible for everything.
Yes.
So I never try to dodge these things. Ma'am, if you could, I don't want you to disclose who you are or anything on the air, but if you can, I could give you my number, 916-3153.
Or she can leave her number to.
Or you can leave your number with the Radio Cayman here, and I will call you back and get further details so I can make some inquiries about the matter.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Premier, I know we haven't had an opportunity to respond to some of the callers. Jan's in relation to the holiday, Christmas Day, and the fact that no stores were open, and.
Well, no, it's not the case that no stores were open.
The major.
But a number of them were not open.
Mm-hmm.
I have had that. I had sort of a mixed, which is I think was her response as well. A sort of mixed reaction. The decision taken by the ministry or the department to have the cruise ships call on Christmas Day, I think was generally welcomed. I've gotten that response, but I've also got the similar reaction as the caller had, which is that if we're going to have the cruise ships come on Christmas Day or any other day like that, we need to make sure that we have geared up to deal adequately with them. And it is something that we really must look very carefully at as we go forward. There is a huge demand for Cayman from the cruise ship standpoint at this point, and it is something I think we need to exploit. But we need to make sure that the people who do come ashore have a good experience, have the opportunity to purchase whatever it is they want, whether it's goods or services, and that, as she said, that we have the island in shape for that occasion. I don't know what went wrong with garbage collection, but it certainly was off. So Christmas Day found many places, including homes, with lots of garbage which was not collected. They did come on Boxing Day, but I don't know what happened before Christmas.
Yeah.
But again, that is an issue. Now that I've assumed responsibility for that, is something that I will look at myself and see where we're going.
Would it be instructive, for instance, if the stores in the downtown area are not going to open, let's say on a Christmas Day, and there were individual vendors, street vendors, who wanted to ply their craft on that. And we know we have the craft market down there. Would the government consider relaxing some, of the regulations in relation to where they can sell and allow them to be in areas closer to the cruise ships that they would, or to the cruise ship, the landing area, in areas where they would normally not be allowed to be if it were a normal day?
Well, that's a discussion I certainly would want to have with the minister and with the department and whoever else is involved. I wouldn't want to sit here and, as premier but not minister responsible for tourism, and give that sort of assurance. I mean, that there may be other factors which I'm not currently aware of that we want to take into account. But of this I am certain: we can't go back down the road of saying cruise ships come and then not have the services and goods available to them, because all we do then is create a disappointing experience. Right.
That's correct. Okay, we have one caller, but before we take that caller, I have an email here that I've been sitting on, for a while, and the person who sent the email is asking the Premier, would he be so kind as to answer two questions. One, if you have any knowledge of what has happened to the piece of property which the Bordentown Old Clinic was constructed on. And two, the people of Bordentown were assured that they would have access to the Cowood Beach projects for activities in the district. However, since 3 years, they have been kept locked up. So two issues: the property that housed the old Bordentown Clinic, and access to the amenities at Cowood Beach that have been closed up.
Well, I'm not sure what the issue is about where the old Bordentown Clinic was. I mean, as far as I know, that's still owned by government. I'm not sure what it is they're asking me beyond that.
Nothing else. That was just a question. Any knowledge of what has happened to the piece of property?
Well, what has happened to it? As far as I am aware, it's still owned by government. As far as I'm aware, I can check to make sure. The other one, quite frankly, I don't understand myself, and it's something I have to get to the bottom of. What the continued hold up is with respect to opening those little kiosks or whatever. Kiosk is probably the right word. That have been built there for quite a number of years now. Access to the Cowood Beach is, the public has access to that. Generally, I mean,
I think it's
access. I think they mean the kiosks.
The kiosks, yes.
And that is a legitimate complaint. I mean, I don't understand why myself those are not being used for the purposes for which they were constructed. I know there are concerns about the size of them and the logistics of it and so forth, but they've been built and at government expense. So we have to make the best of them.
Anything to do with planning approval?
I don't know.
I heard some talk that it may have been.
I don't know. I think there were issues with the CPA initially. Whether those still exist, I don't know. Sorry, I don't have my finger on that particular pulse, so I don't.
Okay. Well, between yourself,
but I can find out,
and I will also try to make some inquiries as well. One more caller online, and hopefully, Premier, we can get back to the agenda that we have set. But
this was my agenda, but the listening public is really who dictate the agenda. That's why I'm here.
So we have one more caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, gentlemen. Number one from the BRAC.
Hey, number one. How are things in the BRAC? How are things going?
I can't tell you I'm at home.
Oh, okay.
I really can't tell you that, sir. No, I'm not going to lie to you.
Happy New Year, sir.
Same to you and to Alden. Alden, you have my respect concerning the passing of your uncle.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, because I am not a man talk behind your back. You must know me down.
Yeah, man.
And what I want to say about this cruise ship and this Sunday thing, I say leave the Cayman Islands as they are. When we go to America, we can't make them change their law. Not because they come in here and spend their money. The Bible said, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. It never said keep it dollarful. I'm not being rude to you or no one. I'm just talking straight. Leave it alone. make the companies that are agents for the cruise ships have a look. On Sunday, so-and-so won't be open, so go ahead. We can get enough during the week. Okay, sir?
Thank you. I hear your point of view.
All right, thank you, sir. You all have a good day, and tell all the members I say Happy New Year, too.
Thank you. Thank you very much, number one.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Premier, one more observation here. We had I got a message in relation to the reduction in of 25 cents to CUC, which then will be passed on to its consumers. And they point out that $4 million divided amongst 27,000 CUC customers equates to about $140 per year, which again broken down is you're looking at between $13 and $15 per month, and I'm not sure whether or not that that strict calculation in that regard is correct, or whether or not there are other ways of looking at it. But I don't know if you want to comment on it.
Well, I think that is a simplistic approach to it, because the savings are not uniform. The way that it's structured, those who at the lower end of the consumption scale actually save more than the commercial customers. That's the way that the whole system has been structured. But I'd say to any of the cynics and skeptics, give it a chance now. It is 25 cents less per gallon now than it was for the last 5 years. So let's see how much savings that actually amounts to, because government is giving up $4 million in revenue. We certainly don't want the savings from the consumer standpoint to be negligible. Otherwise, government might as well keep the $4 million. So what we're doing is trying to deal with this in a incremental or on an incremental basis, so that we see and we can assess what the impact is to the consumer, what the impact is overall to government's revenue projections. And as I said, look over the course of the next few months to see what more we can do come the next budget year. It's got to be an improvement over what the situation was. If we'd added 25 cents, I bet you that that caller or emailer wouldn't have said, oh, it's only going to cost another $13 a year. You would have heard that the multiplier effect and so forth and so on and so on and so on and so on. And it would translate into a huge increase in the cost of electricity. It's a question of perspective.
And we've seen, for instance, and whether or not the two are comparable, in the United States, the reduction at the pump. And, if a person has saved $30 per week or per month, on gasoline purchases, their plans, what they're going to do with that additional $30, because you could, it's $30 that you didn't have in the first place. So,
yeah.
It does help as well.
I am hopeful and optimistic, really, that the combination of this measure, which is now in effect, coupled with the downward trend in fuel prices, actually does translate into significant savings to consumers as far as electricity costs are concerned over the course of the next year or so.
Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Dorit Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning is the Honorable Alden McLaughlin, Premier of the Cayman Islands. I also want to remind you that For the Record would not be possible without the support of our sponsors. And today, For the Record is brought to you by Sea Grape Secretarial Services, located at Unit Number 2, Grand Plaza, Howard Street, Georgetown. They provide quality, professional, and affordable services, and those attributes are guaranteed. At Sea Grape Secretarial Services, there is no job too small for them to undertake. Please stay tuned. We'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Dorit Connor. My guest in the studio with me, Honorable Alden McLaughlin, Premier of the Cayman Islands. We promised you we gave you a whole list of topics that we wanted to discuss. Of course, we've discussed some of them, but our listening audience have decided that they wanted to take other routes on different topics, and of course, they want to take advantage of being able to discuss those with the premier when they have that opportunity. So we can't blame them for that. Right. But let's look at some of the infrastructure projects that are being undertaken or continued by this government. The solid waste management project, airport improvements, for instance, we see in at the Owen Roberts International Airport. Improvements being undertaken there, major improvements. Cruise berthing, talk about that. We had a minister on who spoke earlier about the Georgetown revitalization project, the expansion of the Linford Pearson Highway, improvements at Northwood Prison, and there are many people who would say, do we really need to improve it, make it into a better 5-star hotel? Improve first responders comms network, and the creation, which is important and people have called for this, the creation of a mental health facility, Mr. Premier.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite an impressive list of things that are either on the way or about to get on the way. Obviously, the solid waste management project and the development of a national waste management strategy is key among this government's objectives. It is something for which the former minister and the government has taken a huge amount of criticism particularly from the Compass and others who seem to believe that you can just go to Miami and order one of these things and it'll all be done, or we hand it over to DART or somebody else and they'll solve all your problems. I wish it were so easy. The reality is, if the proposal that DART had made had been a comprehensive waste management strategy for which they would fund, it would have happened, and no one would have quarreled about it. But the proposal at the time was simply the transfer of a landfill from Georgetown to Bordentown, albeit a much more modern and better structured arrangement. But that's essentially what it was. What we're looking for is a national waste management strategy that is capable of managing the country's waste over the course of the next 50 years. Not just, and that is not going to just be a landfill. There's going to have to be a range of different measures that take place. And I certainly am not going to assert that all of those have to take place or can indeed possibly take place on the current landfill site in Georgetown. Some of those may well have to be placed somewhere else. But we have to address this in a comprehensive way. And it's going to take time to do it properly. The issue that we have didn't arise overnight. In the meantime, we are striving, and now that I'm going to assume responsibility for it, it's going to be my personal responsibility to ensure better management of the current landfill site that we have, to avoid the possibility, or to limit, you can never fully avoid these things, limit the possibility of fires and so forth like we had in the past. Better management of the facilities we have while we move ahead with the national waste management strategy. The airport is the one that is actually on the move, and my administration has decided to kick in another $15 million into the pot, because most of the funding for this is actually going to be carried out by the Cayman Islands Airports Authority itself from their own funding, and won't be a strain on government revenue or government having to guarantee a loan or put up the money or borrow the money, as the case may be. But by putting in another $15 million into what they have, we should be able to fast track over the course of 2 years, actually fast track the project and get both phases 1 and 2 done, rather than just moving with phase 1. Because I think we all know that the facilities that we have there are not adequate now to deal with the quantity of passengers who come through there. And of course, people's first impressions of a place are so critical. And it is something that we have to deal with very, very swiftly. Obviously, the government's tourism plan in particular, is working very well. And the numbers, as I cited at the start, are very, very impressive. And all of the indications are that the numbers are going to continue to grow. But that means we have to grow the capacity to deal with them. So the airport also room stock as far as hotels and condos are concerned. And in that respect, we're delighted the progress that is being made on the Kimpton Hotel. And of course, DART is now proposing another major hotel between West Indian Club and Royal Palms.
Royal Palms, yeah.
And that is something that the government is looking very favorably at as well. And of course, the redevelopment of the old Hyatt site, they've gotten planning approvals and so forth for that. So we expect that to kick off during the course of this year. And then we seem to be finally moving ahead with the facility, the hotel, proposed hotel up at Beach Bay. So I think indications on that front are very, very good. What I found particularly impressive really is that as of June 2014, the value of building permits had increased by 190.4% over the previous year. So almost a 200% increase in building permits, all of which I think augurs well for construction and development and all of the other economic activity that will be generated as a result of that. So, coming back to the theme of what I propose to talk about today is that really the prospects for Cayman from an economic standpoint are very, very good over the course of not just the next year, but over the course of the next few years. Most of these construction projects are major. It means they're going to span 2-3 years of actual construction where there's work, lots of work available, and which will allow us to be capable of absorbing a lot of the casual labor, if I may use that expression, unemployment that is currently the case, and to deal with that. So I think things are looking really, really well for Cayman. By the end of this fiscal year, coming back to government finances, the Cayman Islands government will be fully compliant on present trajectory, fully compliant with all of the requirements of the Public Management and Finance Law, which means we'll come out from under the thumb of the UK government in terms of approval of our budget. Gives us a great deal more flexibility in what we can and cannot do. Obviously, we still have to remain in compliance with the law.
With the law, yes.
But we don't have to go to the UK minister.
As long as you're compliant.
As long as we're compliant to get these things done, which I think would be a huge achievement on the part of this government. And I give full credit to Minister Archer and his team. To the whole government, because obviously we have to play our part, but he has really led the charge with making sure that during this administration, we were able to get the country back fully compliant. And at the same time, and this is no short of keep revenues coming strong, keep expenditure under control, give civil servants back their cost of living, and provide significant reductions in things like import duty, and not just on the diesel for CUC, but on things generally for licensed traders, provide fee reductions to small businesses, and continue to look at how we can further reduce the cost of doing business and therefore the cost of living in the country.
Okay, 2 points I have. One, with all of the projects that are slated to either continue or new ones to come on board, do we run the risk of the Cayman Islands economy overheating, and overheating to the extent that, and you mentioned these projects coming online and being able to pick up some of the slack in relation to unemployment. But at the same time, when you're looking for specialty skills, it may mean also having to bring more people on island to do that work as well. And if people start to see that happening, at the expense of the locals being unemployed, then that would certainly not augur well. Other point, MLA Arden McLean mentioned on For the Record the fact that as far as the Georgetown revitalization was concerned, he was certainly 100% in support of giving duty concessions, making duty concessions to any developer on the waterfront, any building owner who wanted to expand their buildings for multi-purpose use, let's say for residential. And I cautioned him that, well, maybe you want to look at the ownership of those buildings first to see, because you may be given concessions to those same entities that you're now criticizing the government for giving concessions to in relation to the building of hotels and stuff. And he said his answer to that was, it doesn't matter. What is important in this particular case is getting Georgetown revitalized. So if you could respond to those 2 points.
Well, to deal with the second point first, our view, and we've considered this, our view about concessions, you don't just give concessions for the sake of giving concessions, because everybody's giving concessions. You give concessions with particular objectives in mind. We've been giving concessions to developers who've come to us since we took office on the basis that we want you to invest now, when we still have an economy that isn't in full stride, when we still have people that are unemployed. Understand that is the purpose, because we want the development to happen now. If you come back to us in a year time and your project has not started, but the economy is moving at a speed we want, sorry, you won't get those concessions. So that is one objective. You want work to start now. You want to create economic activity now. The second is you give concessions to encourage the development of or to develop certain kinds of development. So if what we are after, which is what we are after, is the revitalization of Georgetown and the creation of a more city like character, where you have
gentrification, I think they call it.
But I don't know if they call it gentrification. But actually, where Georgetown, the city itself, actually becomes a place of residence for certain people who live in, what do you call those things up above the commercial aspects of it. I forget, they got a fancy term for people who live up there. Anyhow, it'll come to me in a minute. But you understand what I'm saying, right? If that is what you're after, then the government may want to consider, giving concessions, either reduced planning fees or infrastructure fees or whatever the case is, to encourage that kind of development. So
his argument was that those property owners in that area never sought to develop things like that because they had the properties there for one purpose and one purpose only, to conduct business during the course of the day. And when the night came, they locked up and went home, and that was fine with them.
I agree with his thesis. And as I say, that's the kind of thing that this government will certainly look at, because we understand that for Georgetown to become truly revitalized, to come alive at night, to be a place where, like it is in many other cities, where people want to go as they go now to Cayman Bay, you've got to create a basis for that. And that's going to involve a range of things, not just restaurants and bars and other attractions, but also a certain resident population.
Yep, and the overheating of the economy, possible overheating.
Well, the overheating of the economy is always a possibility, and the great challenge for government is trying to get that balance right. How do you adjust the tap? At the moment, what we're striving for, and it's a bit frustrating from our standpoint, is we've got so many projects just about to go, but none of them are actually gone, where they're actually creating the economic activity that we want. Once that actually starts, as I said, our means of controlling it is going to be that concessions are going to become something of the past, because we're not granting concessions simply because we like developers. Right. We're granting concessions because we're seeking to achieve certain objectives.
Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, we still have callers on the line, so we're going to take that caller now. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Happy New Year to you.
Yes, Happy New Year, Mr. O'Connor, to the Honourable Premier, Mr. Al McLaughlin.
Happy New Year to you.
Okay, thank you.
It's Keith, right?
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh. Good at voices, you know.
Okay. Well, they say if you don't agree with what the problem is, you will not agree with what the solution is. And when it comes to employment and getting the situation sorted out with the minimum wage, in order to make sure that we're putting the right minimum wage in place, and also to prevent any more unemployment happening. And they say it's not what my country can do for me, but what I can do for my country. I think one of the problems we are having here in Cayman is concerning mortgage. There are a lot of small businesses who are renting from individuals who have bank loans on their buildings. And because of the mortgage being so high, they have to charge more monthly for their rent in order to pay off the mortgage and also in order to make a profit. And that also leads to the small businesses not being able to give those employees, pay those employees more than what they're making now at this time. So I don't know if it's possible, but I think it would be the right thing if the government was to have a meeting with Bankers Association in order to see if we can come to some agreement when it comes to how much people have to pay monthly on their mortgages. And also, our gas prices have a lot to do also when it comes to businesses and the prices that they are charging to operate their businesses. So that's all I have to say right now, gentlemen, and Happy New Year again.
Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. His last point there in terms of the gas prices and hopefully because almost every aspect of the economy is linked to the price of fuel, transportation costs, everything else. And again, hopefully we'll start to see some reduction in those as well. But like you said, it's not going to happen overnight. It's something that takes. And at the same time, what we need to say to consumers also is now that you're starting to see those savings, it doesn't mean that you get out there and you drive more because you're paying less for gasoline. Do something positive with those savings that you're achieving.
Yeah, as I said, I believe that the only answer to the gas prices in Cayman is a combination of two things. One, preventing collusion between them in fixing the price, which goes on. There's no question in my mind that goes on between the gas companies, and introducing more competition into the market. Now, Cayman, despite what we think, Cayman's population is very small in relative terms, in terms of consumption of fuel. And so adding more competition to the market is going to mean that market share gets divided. Gets divided in 3 or 4 as opposed to 2. But I really don't know what else to do. Haven't been around this now. This is 14 years since I've been elected, and the issue's always been there. If the current fuel operators, fuel importers, distributors, won't be reasonable, we have to do something to try to control the ever escalating cost of fuel in the country, which bears little relationship to what the cost is somewhere else. And I know we've got to import it. I know it's Cayman in terms of volume, it's relatively small and all of that. But even with all of those factors, I still believe that we are, we are getting charged way too much for a gallon of gasoline or diesel, as the case may be.
I know that we will have, Minister Tibbetts on For the Record at some point early in the new year as well. But as far as the fuel storage project that was talked about, is that still on the table? Is that still in the cards?
Yes, it's still very much on the table. There's a great deal of interest in creating a fuel storage facility here, not just for Cayman, but Cayman being a bunkering point, so that for onward shipment of it to other places. And we believe that if we were to get such a facility, it would significantly reduce the overall cost of fuel consumption.
And even
in Cayman.
And even now with the downward spiral in the price of gasoline, they still think that it would be a viable
option.
Yeah, for them.
Well, I haven't heard anything different. Obviously, this downward trend is something that is fairly recent, but there was significant interest by this group. The name of which I've forgotten now.
Because irrespective of the price, there's going to still be consumption, so there's still going to be the need. As a matter of fact, like there'll be more consumption when the prices go down.
I think it is Cayman's geographical location that is a driving factor with them. As a place from which they can take in satellite vessels, they can distribute the fuel elsewhere. The major storage here, and then you come and you take it and you bunker and you go off.
Yeah, Premier, I want to thank you for being on the show. We know that you had your New Year message to the nation. You gave that New Year message, but for those listening on For the Record now, again, can you summarize your message to them in terms of the outlook for 2015?
Well, the outlook is one that I think is hugely optimistic. From an economic standpoint, I think Cayman is in as good a position as it has been in about 10 years. And the prospects for 2015 and beyond are really, really good. Obviously, we have challenges still. Government still has to stay true to its economic and fiscal plans to ensure that we get back in full compliance with the provisions of the Public Management and Finance Law, get out from under the UK's thumb. We have some challenges ahead still as far as the financial services industry is concerned. This issue of beneficial ownership has raised its head again. I know I'll be off to another major meeting, if not the end of the month, early February, to deal with the challenges that the UK is continuing to raise with respect to that. But I'm confident that we'll be able to deal with that with the assistance of Cayman Finance and the financial services industry as our partners. I have very able Minister of Finance, Minister Panton, and he will be there.
Financial Services.
Minister of Financial Services, yes, and he will be there to lead the discussions with respect to that. From the tourism standpoint, again, I pointed to the significant increase in both cruise ship visitors and air arrivals. All very positive. We've got the development of 3 significant hotels, one that is on the way, 2 that will be on the way, 1 this year and 1 probably by the next year, as well as the prospects of 1 at Beach Bay. I think in terms of room stock, we're gearing up the way we need to gear up to cope with that. I just spoke about the airport redevelopment project. We're conscious of what needs to be done there to make sure that we have adequate facilities to cope with the significant increase in air arrivals. The cruise berthing project it will hopefully be on the way, not this year, but next year. We still have the environmental impact assessments and a whole range of other planning things to go through, and a final an agreement with respect to the cruise companies about the financial structure and ownership structure of the entity that winds up owning and operating the cruise berthing facility. So a whole lot of work still left there to do. A significant number of private sector construction projects that are about to start. So I think from an economic standpoint, there's a great deal in store. We continue to have major challenges with the issue of crime. That's not, even though we didn't talk about it today, it's not something that is ever far from my mind. We had another murder, a couple of nights ago, something that grieves me greatly. We really have to grapple with crime and the social issues that are driving the growth in crime. Everybody focuses on the police and the police not doing a good enough job and so forth. And I'm not saying the police ought to be immune from criticism and at all, not saying that at all. Or that leadership isn't an issue that we should talk about there either. But we need to understand and appreciate and work at the underlying causes that is driving crime. And of course, lack of employment and lack of skills and so forth are all factors. But there are other social factors that are operating as well, breakdown in the family unit and the social mores and so forth, which underpinned the fabric of Cayman society and which are being eroded more and more, are all factors that we have to deal with. The government is trying to address some of those things through legislation, through the rehabilitation and so forth. But we need to spend more time and energy and resources at trying to deal with the causes in the first place rather than the effect.
Yeah.
But overall, as I said, my message is one of optimism. I'm honored and privileged to be able to lead this government and this country at this point in the life of Cayman. As I said, I think the prospects are immense, and I look forward to a very fruitful, productive new year. I wish for all within the sound of my voice health, happiness, and prosperity in 2015. I thank you for hosting the show. I think you have grown into it very much now, and
Thank you.
I am very pleased with the level of interaction that we're getting from callers, caller participation, which is a sign that the show has now found its niche and is able to compete very effectively with anybody else.
Thank you very much for that, Premier, and thank you for being a guest on the show as well. Folks, I want to remind you that you've been listening to For the Record. I've been your host, Art Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning was the Honorable Alden McLaughlin, Premier of the Cayman Islands. I also want to remind you that For the Record was brought to you by Seagrape Secretarial Services. They are located at Unit Number 2, Grand Plaza, Howard Street in Georgetown. They provide quality, professional, and affordable service, and that service is guaranteed. At Seagrape Secretarial Services, there is no job that is too small for them to undertake. So they have been our proud sponsors this morning. Folks, I want to thank you, our listening audience, for allowing For the Record into your homes, into your automobiles, and into your places of work. We, For the Record, can only be successful if we provide the service that you want, if you benefit from what is said here on For the Record, and if you have the opportunity to speak your mind on For the Record as well. And we want to thank you for the success that we have achieved over the past year and looking forward to greater successes in the future. It's all successful when it benefits you, our listening audience. And I also want to remind you, and I will continue to remind you throughout the year, that we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers. There is always someone who is less fortunate than we are, and we ask you to hold out a helping hand to them. There is always someone who is much less fortunate than we are. Hold out a helping hand to them. If you don't want to do that but prefer to give to a local charity, please do that as well. We ask you to stay safe. Rejoin us again on Wednesday morning when we will have the independent members. But continue to listen to Radio Cayman. They're beautiful music. And of course, you will have Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks this afternoon or after midday as well. So continue to support Radio Cayman, your radio station. Thank you and take care. God bless.
Coming to you live from Radio Cayman.